Hey y'all, Dr. J here, and it felt like the right time to show back up. If you're new here, my name's Jonathan Lemaster-Smith. I am a professor of Methodist studies, a rural pastor, and someone who was just online a lot trying to make Methodism make sense. And honestly, the Methodist world is really complicated right now. There's still lawsuits around disaffiliation between the United Methodist Church, Global Methodist Church, and churches that just want to be alone. There are states trying to pass new legislation to allow for disaffiliation, and there's even violent conflict in parts of our world between Methodists, and movements even within some of the denominations to circle the wagons and exact control as these denominations try to figure out what it means to exist in this 21st century world. I still think it's going to be the messiest quadrennium of the Methodist world so far, at least in my lifetime, but probably for a large portion of most of you. But something else is happening. The world is in pain. Violence, division, and hate are swirling on a worldwide level. And we are seeing Methodists all sort of respond in the same direction, even from very different traditions. So I'll start from the beginning of this year. In early January, I woke up to find that the United States had attacked Venezuela and kidnapped their president. The Council of Evangelical Churches of Latin America and the Caribbean released a statement shortly thereafter that got picked up by the World Methodist Council and affirmed also by portions of the United Methodist Church and many other traditions. A selection from that. From our faith, we have the call to raise our prophetic voice so that peace, justice, and healing the earth may reign. As a Methodist people, we are called to be promoters and peacemakers with justice at all times. We condemn any military intervention that does not respect the sovereignty of peoples and that causes ideologies of death to grow, losing respect and value for human life. Later on in January, as violence continued across our country with immigration enforcement raids and responses to that, the United Methodist Council of Bishops releases by far what I think is the most bold statement I've ever seen them make. The United Methodist Church deplores the use of violence, fear, separation, and intimidation as a means of creating social order. Such means do not build beloved community. We reaffirm our longstanding commitment to the sacred worth of every person and to the way of peace taught and embodied by Jesus. We stand against the separation of children from their families. We detest the inhumane, evil actions that are perpetuated by governmental authorities. Our social principles are clear. We reject the governmental use of threats, extortions, and unlawful detentions, extrajudicial killings, and other forms of coercion to silence political opponents and those objecting to unlawful, immoral government policies and practices. They further affirm that the church has both the right and the responsibility to educate and equip its members to be advocates for justice in the wider world. Following that, within a few days, the Global Methodist Church releases its own statement, the Assembly of Bishops of the Global Methodist Church. This is a portion of their statement as well. We lament the suffering of immigrants, refugees, and displaced persons, as well as the victims of terrorism, war, and political violence. Our prayers and voices are with civilians to enduring instability, displacement, hunger, and even death around the globe. We must speak and act against evil, yet we boldly proclaim that apart from the transforming work of Jesus in our lives and the lives of those around us, change will be elusive. Within the same time period, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, or the AME Church, releases a very bold statement. Here's a selection from that. We stand in the season when the old demons of white supremacy are once again parading in the garments of law and order. The same spirit that armed slave patrols to stalk our ancestors in the dark of night now arm federal agents and emboldens those who feel licensed to brutalize and kill our people in the streets, as we have seen in the recent murders of our sister Renee Good and our brother Alex Preddy, whose life was cut short by senseless racist violence. And following that, the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church Office of Mission and Evangelism releases a statement on faith and advocacy. Our faith must be rooted in biblical understanding, awareness, and truth. When faith is grounded in the Word of God, it does not drift with public opinion or bow to cultural pressure. Instead, it anchors us in divine purpose and moral clarity. From that grounding comes responsibility that calls to advocate for those whose voices cannot, will not, or are drowned out by the overwhelming noise of our society. Scripture reminds us that faith is never passive. It is active, attentive, and responsive to human suffering in real time. True faith must transcend the noise, not merge with it to create chaos. The people of God are not called to shout merely to be heard, but to speak and sometimes stand in ways that reveal God's heart. There are moments when words are unnecessary, when our presence, posture, and persistence testify that God is deeply concerned about justice, mercy, and righteousness. Alongside of that, various other groups, including a major group from the West North Carolina Conference of that started out as around 800 signatures, that's grown to well over 1,000 at this point, release a statement. I'm one of the ones who signed that statement, that they are in opposition to the use of violence and force within Minnesota and around our country. This was carried in 4 major newspapers as well as featured on NPR. My assumption is more statements like this will arise from entities within various Methodist denominations and of course other denominations around the world. I'm here just focusing on 8-Minute Methodism. These are Methodists from around the world signing on to this, not just in the United States, but other countries. The Latin American and Caribbean churches are included in that. What we see is a response to the evil and injustice in our world, and a living out of the faith which we have inherited in our baptism in Jesus Christ. The baptismal vows of both the Global Methodist and United Methodist Church calling us to resist evil, injustice, and oppression. This is not an optional question that you don't have to answer when you are baptized or when an infant is baptized that his parents and caregivers answer. It is a call to resist evil, injustice, and oppression by the grace and power of God, says the GMC. Or do you accept the freedom and power that God gives you to resist evil, injustice, and oppression, as what the UMC says? These are the two I have in front of me, and it is a reminder that in our baptism, we are not just saved from sin so we don't have to deal with the sin and evil of the world. It is so that we can respond to the sin and evil of the world. This is at the heart of what Methodism does, what Methodism is encouraging us to do. And in fact, John Wesley will point to that we cannot stay silent, even if we're not sure we're being called to work for justice. In his general rules for the United Societies, the second rule of the 3 general rules is do good. That is, by being in every kind and merciful after their power, as they have opportunity, doing good of every possible sort and as far as possible to all men. And it lists out some of the things like feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting and helping them that are sick or in prison. And to our souls, by instructing, reproving, and exhorting all we have any intercourse with, trampling underfoot the enthusiastic doctrine that we are not to do good unless our hearts be free to do it. He's saying here, we don't get to say, I'm not called to do that. I'm not feeling led to do that. If there is evil and injustice in this world, we must respond to it. Later on in his thoughts upon slavery, which is in general a cry for justice overall, but of course to the particular issue of slavery in the colonies and abroad, he writes, "The blood of thy brother crieth against thee from the earth, from the ships and from the waters. Oh, whatever it cost, put a stop to its cry before it be too late. Instantly, at any price, were it half of your goods, deliver thyself from blood guiltiness. Thy hands, thy bed, thy furniture, thy house, thy lands are at a present stained with blood. Surely it is enough. Accumulate no more guilt. Spill no more of the blood of the innocent. Do not hire another to shed blood, and do not pay him for doing it." He continues, "If therefore you have any regard to justice, to say nothing of mercy, nor the revealed law of God, render unto all their due. Give liberty to whom liberty is due. That is, to every child of man, to every partaker of human nature." He is saying that if any injustice is being done, we are to respond to it and do all that we can to help with it. As Methodists and just as Christians in general, our doctrine is one that points from salvation to justice, from baptism toward liberation, and from acknowledgement to action. You may not be sure how you feel about lots of different issues, but if you're not sure how you feel about one subject, that doesn't preclude you from responding to the needs of all the other injustices in our world. If you're not sure you're called to one thing, it doesn't mean you get to sit on your hands. If you're unsure about how to respond to immigration, look for another issue, work towards that justice. War, mistreatment of women, water scarcity, increasing healthcare costs, and find ways to work towards justice using the gifts, connections, and skills that God has given you. As the United Methodist Church says in their statement, this is a moment that calls for prayerful courage to speak against actions that are bringing harm to our neighbors. As the Global Methodist Church says, think biblically and prophetically, not just politically. As the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church says, faith is not meant to be independent or isolated. It is communal by design. Faith that is kept to us becomes stagnant. Faith that is shared becomes transformative. And as the African Methodist Episcopal Church says, we affirm that every believer, every elder, every child, every lay member, and every clergy person has a role in this struggle for liberation. Some of us can risk arrest. Some can risk reputation. Some can give generously. Some can cook, organize, write, or sing. All of us can stand in solidarity, speak truth, and refuse to turn away. None of us is called to do everything, but each of us is called to do something. As we face the realities of the world today, the evil, injustice, oppression, and wickedness that is present, we must not turn away, we must not be silent, and we must not isolate ourselves, and we must not wash our hands of the needs of the world. I'll close with a quote from John Wesley's sermon on zeal. Thus, should he sow his zeal for works of piety, that is prayer, attending worship, attending the sacrament, studying scriptures, but much more for works of mercy, the works of justice, the works of caring for our neighbor, the works of liberation, seeing that God will have mercy and not sacrifice, that is, rather than sacrifice. Whenever, therefore, one interferes with the other, that is works of piety and works of mercy. Mercy is to be preferred. Even reading, hearing, and prayer are to be omitted or to be postponed at charity's almighty call, when we are called to relieve the distress of our neighbor, whether in body and soul. Onward to perfection, y'all. I'll see you soon.